Hello everyone, today's video is going to be me talking about my suggestions for what you should spend the free relic on. I'm going to go over a few scenarios, mainly the scenarios being either you have Tonar's relic already, or you don't have Tonar's relic. Well, the key one is if you don't have Tonar's relic, she's definitely the one you want to get first. Where is Thonar? Here she is. So her relic pretty much only works for the red Thonar, which is both increases allies' HP stats by 10%, up to 4 times, which is very good, and fills allies' ultimate gauge all by 1 whenever the character uses a skill. That does not include ultimates. Ultimates will not increase your team's ult gauge, which is slightly unfortunate, and this only works in the Skoll and Hati Demonic Beast. So, there are a few limitations to this passive. One of them, her ultimate doesn't give... her ultimate does not give any extra ult gauge or count towards her... so let's say you get her ult gauge on second turn. Use her ultimate, you will not get the 10%. Let's say you're at 3 stacks, your ultimate will not give you the 4th stack. You would then have to then play another card to get the 4th stack. Of course, there are slight limitations with her passive anyway, which is the fact you actually have to use attacking skills, and the attacking skills have to deal damage. If the attacking skill does not deal damage, you will not gain her passive. Of course, her passive and her relic don't, they don't have to work together. But, it's always nice to have both of them working together. The HP related stats is also very broken. Like 40% of HP related stats is super high. Like I think Melascula's base lifesteal is, I want to say 40%. I don't actually know her base lifesteal, but it's very high. It's overall good relic. Of course, if you do have her relic already, which some of you may have, you're probably thinking, do you need the King team anymore? My thought is the King team is still very good. Until you have a very good Freya or just an overall a very good team to wipe it, that doesn't require, super good RNG, the King team is still definitely the best team to run. I know the King team does require quite high RNG, but it's definitely not as high as some other teams. So next to Relic I would recommend is if you are going to go for a team, you still want to use the King team, definitely King's Relic. King's Relic is very handy. The ability to increase his own damage dealt by 15%, which is also very good. That means the shield is stronger. But also, when your allies are protected by the shield, they get 15% increased basic stats. Of course, HP will not, do anything unless they're a HP-based character, which there aren't any HP-based characters for Skoll and Hati. But the 15% will also give you defense and attack, which is very useful, especially when you end up getting to the higher floors. They get more tanky, they start lowering your stats more. It's very handy, especially if you want to do the Patience team with Barn. It's very handy keeping Barn out of danger. Of course, if you are going to go for a more RNG-based team, a character I would definitely recommend getting their Relic is Skadi. Obviously, her Relic only works for herself, it doesn't actually buff her teammates, but 18% all stats is very big. Because if you think about it, let's just say she gets 18% all stat, and she's got the 40% HP related stat increase from Thonar. She's got 58% lifesteal, which is very good. Of course, she does lower her stats quite a bit with her own passive. Not her passive, but one of her cards, which lowers her HP by X% every time she uses that card. But also that does help with her passive, which is very good. Of course, this only works when there's no debuffs on her, so that it will be very rare that you have no debuffs on her, because the dogs love to debuff you, especially on the higher floors. So probably you only have about 2 stacks, and that'll be just from the starting turn, where you play both her cards just to make sure that she has a few stacks. Of course, this also means that she increases her resistance and her attack as well. Resistance increase is very handy for dogs, especially crit resistance, and all the defense-related stats are very key in dogs to make sure you don't get crit. Because if you get crit, sometimes that can definitely be like the killer of, you being your king being a one-shot or your king being alive, and it's sort of the same with Skadi. Because if Skadi does get targeted, she will take a hell of a lot of damage. Of course, the freezing will not also remove these buffs, as these buffs are grey buffs that are applied, which is also good. But something I do like about her Relic is her Relic can be used everywhere. Same as Festival King's Relic, I forgot to mention that. But they can be used everywhere. They're not limited. They're not like, they have no limitations. You can't own. It's not like PvP only or PvE only or dogs only. You can use it anywhere you want, which is very handy. Of course, if you've got a lot of relics. I've recently just started buying a hell of a lot of relics just because it's infinitely farmable now. Relics I wouldn't really recommend is if you have Omnus Nebula Zeldris, the blue Zeldris that recently came out, not recently, but the newest Zeldris, I don't recommend getting this relic. Yes, it is good, he does provide stats, but he is not really needed. I would say the infect is a lot more impactful now. The fact that we now have all control with melee with this passive, having also the Blue Zeldris also does have all control, but its pulverized means you need four ult gauge. But I still think the infect is more worth it. For some reason, if you want to get Matrona's Relic, it does increase Giant's basic stats, or is it all stats? No, that's not the Relic, you idiot. Basic stats by 25%, which would be helpful for her, but I don't really see it actually being useful. Chandler's Relic is very good if you want to use it for PvP. Cusack's Relic is useless, as if this worked in PvE as well, it also... Sorry, if his passive also worked in PvE, he would be very useful. But the fact that his passive only works in PvP means that the Relic doesn't help him much, as he's mainly based off increased stats. The enemy's increased, I think it's HP. I don't actually have Cusack, he's the one character I just never get. Yeah, it does an additional damage. Demon allies, so that's good. It's also demon allies as well. But unfortunately, if his Relic had something to do with also it allowing his passive to work in PvE, he would be a very good character. But unfortunately, it doesn't. If you recently summoned on Freya and you want a PvP team, you know, this Diane's Relic is very useful. Gives them a damage cap 50%, means they can't be one-shot. Of course, Escanor's death damage will bypass that a little bit. And it gives like sort of like a flood, but it increases their attack-related stats for every 6% of remaining HP they have whenever they use a skill, of course. Which is actually very good. Especially for characters like Freya, she increases her stats already by a lot. I think it's about 28%. If you have 4 Ragnarok characters on the field, and then, you know, with the, I think it gives around 12%, I want to say 12 or 13% increased more attack rate stats, which is also very useful. And now we're on to Thonar. So I want to show the stats for her relics. So of course, the two main contender relics will be King's Relic, Festival King's Relic, and of course this Thonar relic here. Thonar's relic, it gives attack, which is very useful for Thonar. Thonar's ultimate does hit very hard, but her other cards don't really hit the hardest, and then sometimes they can actually be patience as well, which is kind of disappointing, especially when you need to remove the ult gauge. Of course, there are some people like, oh, run attack crit down on her because they want to see damage, but from my point of view, or from my team, from my experience, she gets targeted a lot. You don't really want someone who's key passive, the key person allowing you to do all this damage and to use this team, to just be nuked. Because if you get really unlucky with passives, she can... Any character can be killed within like a click of your fingers. It's stupid. And now on to King. So King's Relic, it gives a lot of stats. Like this is a lot. When it comes to relics, this is very good. Of course, the effect of the relic also being useful as well. But I would definitely say this is a relic you'd get Tonar's relic before you get this relic. But like this King relic is definitely helpful. Like the only reason I fail dogs now is because I just don't pull a King card. Because he's very good with the relic. Yeah, that's it. I don't really know. I do hope they add more relics. My key character I want them to give a relic for is Freya. I want him to have a relic that has something to do with debuffs, as the main problem on pretty much all demonic beasts nowadays are debuffs, especially the new one, and dogs. And Freya is a key character for both of them. So having, you know, remove debuffs, some sort of effect like that would be pretty good. Something I was thinking was that whenever, you know, every 2 turns when your allies get the buff, it also gives them, I don't know, debuff immunity for 1 turn. Or just something like that to make it, or like cleanses them and gives them debuff immunity for 1 turn or 2 turns. Just to make it so debuffs aren't as insane, because sometimes you can be completely screwed over by debuffs. I know you have like the card sets for like dogs, you've got like the one that stops you from freezing, but I believe that a relic that could remove, maybe just limit the amount of debuffs. There can only be 1 debuff on every ally. Oh god, my voice. Can only be a debuff on 1 debuff on every ally, which I think would be pretty fair. Sort of like Nalfmi's Taunt, which is also very good. Obviously, this is not a video about Nalfmi. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.